we are here in the studio and we are going to start with our lovely conversation about periods. And it's really interesting that last week we spoke about menopause and we're kind of going back, aren't we? We're talking about periods and menstruation. So first of all, I would like you to introduce yourself. So if you go first, Rae.
Sure.
So your name and who you are.
Lovely. Hello, thanks for having me. I'm Dr Rae Mundane. I'm a sexual and reproductive health doctor working across the hospitals and clinics in the city.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. And Nic?
Morning, everyone. Thanks for having me too. So I'm Nic. I am here representing the Grace Period Project, and I'm absolutely delighted to have the opportunity to talk all things periods. It's really what we're all about, is to get that out there and have this conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, both. So, periods, menstruation, is this an unusual thing? I mean, you're a doctor. So mums and their girl children will come in and have a chat. What are the kind of things that mums and girls have to say when it comes to periods, menstruation? What are the issues?
Well, it happens to us all. It's one of those big topics that everyone faces. And probably the first starting question that is really common in my work in general is, am I normal? What's normal? So that kind of mystery of where do I sit among my peers? What's going on here? And then the kind of main symptoms that people want to know about are pain, how heavy is too heavy, regularity, and should it be like clockwork? And then also like dealing with the sensations and how to physically manage the blood and to stay feeling sort of clean and in control a little bit. It can feel a bit out of control when you start your periods.
Okay, so when you start your periods, let's start at the beginning though. Symptoms, how do you know this thing is going to happen?
Yeah, so the normal question is always something to be kind of slightly quizzical about. So I would think about averages instead of normal. But on average, people with a womb will menstruate, usually starting around the age of 12, but it can be a few years before, a few years after. And they usually menstruate approximately once a month, every 28 days, until they go through the menopause, which in the UK is average about 50, 51. And your great podcast last week covers loads of that in detail. And the kind of signals that you'll get that you're going to start your periods are that you might have some tummy cramps. You might have some change in your mood, maybe your energy levels. Sometimes people have a few bowel symptoms, so they might find that their poo gets a bit runny or their tummy gets sore. And then you would have some bleeding. And most people bleed for 4 to 5 days. And it's not that much in terms of the amount physically, although there's a big variety, but it's usually under 100 mils. So what's a can of Coke? A can of Coke's about 200 mils, isn't it? So it's less than half of that each month. But when it's your body and it's coming out and it's you that's having to look after it, it feels a lot. It feels big.
So we've all been through it and some of us are still going through it. Nic, I just want to come over to you because you probably work with lots of young people and they come to you and say, listen, I'm not coping with this. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's such a normal and it's a natural thing. It's going to happen.
Yes, and that's probably the first thing I would say, is that it's totally normal that 50% of the population are experiencing it. But it, as well as it being normal, it's a unique and personal experience to each of us. And I think talking about it, having these sorts of conversations, using the words like period and blood, tampons, and making sure that those words, we can use them with confidence, that we can really own them. And yeah, just encouraging people to talk to their parents, to their doctor, and actually to each other, particularly young people. I think that it's something that a lot of young people, perhaps because it's new to them, maybe shy away from having those conversations. But actually, once you get the ball rolling, once you start talking, boys and girls, actually, I think this is a conversation that boys need to hear as much as girls do. And we, I think there's an interesting conversation about the language that we might use around that, and perhaps for another time. But yeah, just getting out there and having the conversation is really what we're all about.
Right. Well, you've got a couple of bags there. I don't want you to show us yet because there's some interesting items in those bags, and I want you to describe them for us later on.
Will do.
But that's something for a moment. But for now, just explain the Grace Period Project.
Yeah.
So that's where you're from.
That's where I'm from. Yep. So the Grace Period Project, run by myself and my friend Zoe, we 2 years now since we've started. We're based in North Somerset, and our aim is to tackle period poverty, which is prevalent everywhere, and maybe we'll talk a bit about what that is in a moment. So we aim to tackle period poverty and reduce the stigma around periods, and raise awareness and understanding, because conversations like this, and Ray mentioned, is so important. I've come with a great big book full of statistics, and one that I find really shocking actually is that about 70% of people learn about periods informally through family, friends, or online, rather than through formal education in schools. So this sort of conversation that we're having right now is really important. It might be for some people the first time they've really stopped to think about what periods are, and learn a little bit more about actually, what's happening to them.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that how you mentioned the language that we use around it. Are young people really shy or embarrassed about using that word period? Is that still the case?
I think less so. I think actually that young people, perhaps thanks to things like social media, I actually think young people are pretty good at owning things like that nowadays. And I'm actually a teacher. I've been teaching for more than 15 years, and I definitely have seen a change in the trend of people feel more confident to use the language, ask for period products, ask adults and for information in period products. And I think actually young people are pretty good these days.
Yeah, nice. I know the real women want to come in, but there's one more question before that happens, is that you did mention family as well. Yeah. And we had a chat, Ray, before we came into the studio, how everybody is involved, and on a personal level, I would never dream of asking my dad to go to the shop and get something for me. It just wouldn't happen when I was growing up. How times have changed, because easily my daughter can ask her dad to do that, and it's absolutely normal and fine. So I want to bring in the family, because it's not just about that young girl or that young woman. It's about the whole family. So could you maybe, could you come in on that?
Of course, absolutely. It is about the whole family, and whatever that family might look like, is that if everyone has a little bit of a better understanding of periods and what that means, and it's not just that 4 or 5 day bleed, but it's the whole menstrual cycle and how that affects the person who's menstruating. We all know from our own experiences that we can have some real highs in that monthly cycle and some lows and everything in between, from spots and sore boobs and everything else. And if everyone can understand a little bit more about it, then I think hopefully families can live in a bit more harmony, because, sometimes you just have that day, don't you, when you just need to make a cup of tea and have a bit of chocolate and hunker down in a cozy blanket. And if we all can know a little bit more about why that is, then hopefully we can better support each other.
Absolutely. Sue?
Well, I was interested when you talked about how do you know when a period's coming, because I remember when I was about 11, I was home, and I think I was a bit quieter than usual. And my mum, and then it turned out my period was starting, and my mum said, I thought that might be what it was. Because, as you said, the mood lowered. But when I was at school, we hardly talked about periods. We talked about the curse. Oh, that's what we talked about at ours. And we would never have dreamed about talking to our fathers or brothers about it in a million years.
How times have changed.
Well, they have. And then when my son was at primary school, they were doing a project on it. And I think at the age of about 9, he came to ask me what my periods were like and how long they lasted.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
Wow, that's such a change, wow, it just shows, doesn't it, how fast that can happen.
We've moved on.
Whenever I feel like we're in that at the minute around women's health issues, like menopause. And, I know now just talk about that quite openly with people. And, periods as well. It's great to be able to, because, it really does affect how you feel through the month. And I think if you're not really aware of that, you can't really care for yourself as much, or you're not, you don't have that sort of, that power to sort of know where you're at, And I was never into tracking my period, but I know that a lot of people do. And I'm now I'm coming into menopause really, so I'm not really having normal periods now. So, but I kind of wish that I had known to do that since I was really from the beginning, which for me was 14, I wish I'd had that information, and
known how it was affecting me. So is that something that you talk about and recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you can track your period, and it doesn't have to be anything complicated, does it? You know, a little mark on your calendar. There's various apps that you can use, and it's all just about understanding your own body. I'm sure that Ray can speak better to that than I can, but understanding your own body, what's normal for you. And then for a start, it means that you can plan and prepare. You know your time of the month's coming up, your period's coming, right? Get the chocolates in, get the hot water bottle ready. But also, I guess it then helps you understand if something's different or things change. And I guess that's the case with anything about our bodies, just understanding ourselves better. But yeah, I agree. If you can track your period, then you can really be in control of it. You can really own it and celebrate it. Actually, come on, lucky us, we get to do this. Good on us.
Well, and it's true that it does come with quite a lot of good stuff, although sometimes it does come with bad stuff.
Yeah.
But I think once you become sort of menopausal, you realise all the stuff that all the really positive things that all those hormones are doing for you.
Yeah.
And then that starts, to change in varying ways. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Do you know, sometimes we just listening to this conversation, we take womanhood for granted. And just listening, I'm thinking, my gosh, all our girls and what they've had to go through. And I'm not even internalizing it because it's us, what we've had to go through, but I am actually thinking of my children and the moods that they used to get into and I used to get into and actually still do. Mm-hmm. Those spots, the acne, and you're a teenager and all you want is a clear face, just clear skin, no spots, the pain, all these things that we've had to go through. And I think, wow, we managed it.
Yeah.
And we will manage it. So I actually love the fact that you are saying, let's celebrate this. This is our womanhood.
Absolutely.
Let's celebrate it, even though we've got all those horrible things to go with it. But with those horrible things takes treatment sometimes.
Sure.
So, Doctor, you may have so many people who come in and say, okay, a hot water bottle isn't really doing it for me.
You're not cutting it.
Yeah. What can you offer?
Well, definitely. I think just to go back to the diary thing, I've put that in a little love heart on my notes in front of me because I really love it when my patients have a diary, and that can be just pen and paper. Sometimes the apps feel like they may be bossing you around a bit and telling you what's going on rather than the other way around. So yeah, be empowered. I think power is really important here. So yeah, keeping a diary, knowing what's right for you, and also thinking about it like a journey. So you might have 40 years of this. So it's going to change. You're going to grow and develop. Other factors in your life are going to change and develop. But yeah, if your symptoms of your period are affecting your life, then it's really good to talk to a health professional. And because your life is unique, the moment when your period is starting to affect you and having issues, it's going to be unique to you too. Mm-hmm. So don't let how other people are coping stop you. If it's making your life difficult, if it's making getting out of bed difficult, going to school, having sex, if it's making those things difficult, then it's important to us. So we want to hear about it. And that's the first step.
I did want to ask also about natural remedies. I can imagine people out there thinking, are there any natural things I can take? Yeah. My mum always used to talk about ginger tea.
Ginger,
just to settle down your tummy.
Ginger does feature in kind of people's repertoires of herbal remedies. I would say I did a quick refresh of my information. Still, I would say from a kind of standard medical perspective, there's nothing really brilliant out there, herbal or alternative wise, that has got great evidence. But I think because everyone's life is unique, if there's a herbal remedy that's not causing you harm that you want to try, then we would definitely support you around that. It's great to tell a health professional that you're doing that in case you're taking something that's actually quite potent. But if you did go and see a health professional, then with a diary, we could kind of look through where those sticking points are for you. Is it pain? Is it how heavy things are? Is it that it's unpredictable and you're not sure about that? Or is it that you don't have the resources, maybe the period products that you need to manage your flow? And we talked a little bit about hot water bottles, and there are other non-tablet forms of things that you could try. So gentle exercise can often ease down some of those sensations, and that feels like the last thing you might want to do sometimes. But for others, they might have really strong lived experience that swimming, yoga, walking, stretching, dancing feeling good in your body can really help. And at the other kind of end of that, things like TENS machines are having a bit of a moment. There's some that are really marketed at the moment for periods and period pain. And there is a little evidence and it won't cause harm. So I think that's a really good starting point. There are some medicines that can address the actual chemicals that might be causing the pain. So ibuprofen and slightly more snazzy versions can reduce something called prostaglandins, which we think might be causing some of that pain. And then we can also tinker with the hormones as well. So medicines that might be used for contraception can also be used to manage the pain and the heaviness of the period.
Here we go. Yes. BCfm Real Women. We are still talking about the menstrual cycle, about periods. Endometriosis is one of those words that have come up in our break time conversation, but it's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing it up. It's really on people's minds, and I'm really glad that people are hearing about it, whether that's on TikTok or from their friends. I really welcome people doing that research and learning.
Can you just outline what that means?
Yeah, so endometriosis is quite a common condition. About 1 in 10 of women have it. And it basically means that the lining of the womb, which is the bit that gets thicker with hormones during the cycle, and if a pregnancy were to happen, that lining would support the pregnancy. And then that lining, if you don't get pregnant, is the bit that sheds as blood during a menstrual cycle. So that lining is supposed to be just on the inside of your womb. And sometimes that lining can be found elsewhere in the body. So it might be on the outside of the womb, it might be on the tubes, ovaries, and in some people with more severe conditions can be in other parts of the inside of your tummy. And if you're having that tissue somewhere else, then the hormones that send signals to the lining of your womb are also sending signals there. And so you might have a little bit of bleeding, a little bit of swelling, and that can cause pain. And so it's a really common concern for women who have painful periods is, could this be endometriosis? And I think earlier we talked about what treatments we might want to look at, but taking a step back, it's really important to think, is my period difficult, painful, causing me harm because of a difficult problem underlying it, a health problem that needs addressing? I think always having that question in your mind, if there has been a change, if you've done a diary and things have changed, is really important. So speaking to a doctor about that, and you can always ask the question, could this be endometriosis?
Right. And so are we talking just women? Because you did mention women. Do you mean teenagers, young girls and
can
women?
Be, can be from young age, can be from the offset.
Because in our conversation, we were talking, sometimes you go to the doctor and endometriosis isn't necessarily recognised. And maybe the teenager is offered the pill. And that needs to be checked, doesn't it?
Well, it's a tricky one. So yes, I think I can really understand that people want to know, why is my period painful? Is it because there's something like endometriosis or a couple of other conditions, fibroids, adenomyosis, which is similar to endo. And there are a few other things that could cause your periods to be worse than average. And there's a deep instinct to know, I want to know what's wrong with me. On the flip side, one of the first treatments that would be recommended if you did have a diagnosis is something like hormonal control with a contraceptive. And if your GP did recommend, why don't you see if things get better with the pill, that wouldn't be masking a problem getting worse. It would actually be helping that problem. So it can be quite a useful thing to just give you that relief straight away. Sometimes if you went on a pill, that endometriosis pain would reduce quite significantly. But it's a really natural and normal thing to want to know, well, is there something else going on underneath?
That's
so
right.
There are other tests that you can have done, scans, for example. But I would say sometimes the journey to a diagnosis is not that straightforward. We don't have excellent tools that can give you very, very quick answers. It's not like a blood test that says yes or no. And so sometimes in the meantime, you might want to treat the symptoms with something like hormonal methods or non-hormonal methods that I've mentioned.
Right, thank you. Do you want to come in before we go and find out what's in the bag?
I do, yes.
The suspense.
Yes, so I used to have two sort of symptoms when I had periods. One was migraine, which I used to get regularly about a day or two before the period. a bad migraine. And then the other thing was feeling quite depressed.
Quite low, yeah.
And a friend of mine used to get it to a kind of mentally crippling stage. Really, she couldn't hardly go out the room for a couple of days. She was really, all her self-worth went down the drain.
I'm so sorry.
So do you get many people coming with that, and what can you offer?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, the kind of core of this show is about the actual blood, but as we've said, it's a whole cycle, and it's really, really common. You're not alone. About half of women experience some of those premenstrual symptoms. So that means in the 1 to 2 weeks leading up to the day that you start bleeding, the hormone changes with estrogen dropping and progesterone rising, and then dropping again suddenly. Those fluctuations can be really hard on our mind and our brain. So that could be physically with a migraine, or it could be emotionally, mentally, with low moods. And I think I liked that you used self-worth as a descriptor, because I actually really remember sometimes looking in the mirror and thinking my actual physical face looks different. I feel less in touch with myself. It really, everything, your whole perspective feels different. It's like you put a different pair of glasses on, and the lens that you're looking with changes. So about 1 in 2 women have some symptoms like that. And about 1 in 100 have that really, like, as you said, devastating levels that can be quite serious for their mental health, and they can feel really awful, and similar to what was mentioned in your menopause podcast, they can feel even suicidal. So in terms of what we can do about that, first of all, you're not alone. There is help available, and it's the same sort of palette of options that we mentioned before. So we could first of all get empowered, get that knowledge about your cycle, and decide whether you want to put a reminder on your fridge or on your phone that it's coming up, so you can take some steps to make life better, to get the people around you to support you during those weeks. There are some herbal remedies that may have some improvement. Some people feel that slight dietary adjustments can help, and certainly your bowel slightly gets a bit overactive as you get towards your period as well. And then sometimes for some women, switching off those hormone signals from the brain can be really calming. So that would be stopping ovulation. And again, the medicines that we would tend to use there are contraceptives. So a contraceptive that turns off ovulation, so you don't have that rising and falling all the time, can be really helpful. And same with migraines.
Wow. We've got something from Paula from Eastville, and she says fibroids, the connection between fibroids and periods may make periods heavy and painful. Is that right?
Yeah, it definitely can do. So fibroids is really interesting, and that I don't mean to sound flippant, but they're so important because they're really, really common. About 2 in 3 women will have some fibroids. But the thing to remember is that lots of us have them and we don't know we've got them. I've got one. I didn't know I had it until I gave birth. And they said, oh, your fibroid's there. So it's not just that having them means that you definitely have symptoms, but if you've got heavy, painful periods, it could be that they're related to fibroids. Yes.
Wow. There you go, Paul. Go and see your doctor if you need help. Okay. The suspense is killing me. Right, yes, the bag. Can we just take a look? Because we want to look in the bag and then we want to have a conversation about period poverty.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's do it in that order.
Okay.
Because, just remembering when we were growing up, having a period was very expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got with me, it's not great for radio actually, is it? So I'll do my best to describe. So I've got with me a Grace bag, which we at the Grace Period Project put together and distribute between 90 and 140 of these bags every month across North Somerset and Bristol. So it's a little brown paper bag with a discrete Grace Period Project logo stamped on it. And inside this particular one, I've got today, I don't know if you can hear the rustling, 2 packs of period pads, which I'm hoping we can at some point just mention. We've mentioned treatment and all sorts of things, but actually period products, and there's so many options out there today that people can choose from. So I've got here 2 sets of pads. These are pads with wings, so you can stick them in your pants, and the idea is that they stay put. And then the other thing, I've actually got my bag, and I hope I haven't disappointed anyone because it's not that exciting, is I've got a little tea bag This is a little sort of herbal tea, raspberry and hibiscus flavour, and a little message from the Grace Period Project. And what we say in our little bag is that we've put this pack together because we believe that life shouldn't have to be harder just because you're on your period. And one of the big aims that we have at the Grace Period Project is to try and reduce period poverty in our community. So period poverty, if you haven't heard that term before, or for others, sometimes we use the term period inequity, is the inability to access period products or suitable period products, but also a lack of education and understanding around periods. So it's a sort of a twofold issue. Period poverty currently affects as many as 1 in 5 people who menstruate in the UK. And that's actually a trend that has risen in recent years. And particularly amongst young people between 18 and 24-year-olds, as many as 27% of people who menstruate struggle to afford suitable period products. So what we do at the Grace Period Project is we put these bags together, we distribute them to all sorts of amazing charities and organisations across North Somerset and Bristol, and people, whoever needs them, you can come and access, take a bag home with you for free. There's no sort of threshold or sort of eligibility test. You can take a bag if you need them, and it might be that you just need it once. You might be having a tough month where your budget just hasn't stretched that far, or for some people we know that they come month after month and take a bag home with them. We've had some amazing messages from people that we support just to say that, you know, in a household where you might have mum, 2, 3, 4 daughters, you know, period products can be expensive.
Absolutely.
And yeah, stretching your budget to meet everybody's needs can be tough. And what we found, I mean, there's some incredibly sad and distressing information out there that people have to turn to using alternatives such as tissues, socks, newspapers, or using their products for too long. So keeping pads in your pants for too long, wearing tampons for too long, and then putting yourself at risk of things like toxic shock syndrome. So what we attempt to do at the Grace Period Project is just really what a lot of people would say should be available anyway, is period products that are free and available to take, and then also open up the conversation as well. So
I'm loving the idea that you can go to community centres, you can go to, you know, Watershed or different places and go into the loo and see products there.
Yeah, and it's definitely becoming more common, isn't it, that we're seeing period products just available in a little basket to take. I think we find that there is something that's a distinction that's important, is that I think it's very common for people to get caught short. Your period might come a day early, or you just haven't been organised and you think, oh crumbs, I've run out. And it's really great to see that more often than not we can access a free tampon or a free pad in the loos. I think what we're trying to do here is a bigger issue in terms of actual period poverty or period inequity, is that there are some people who just cannot afford the very, very basic things of pads and tampons. So that's just what we're trying to do at the Grace Period Project, is just to help people out.
Well, you said that we might be let down by what you've got in there. Absolutely not. This is a gift.
That's it. Well, we try. We Zoe and myself, we try and sell it as a care package. I haven't today, but we usually have a little chocolate in the bag as well. We've just 2 days ago done our drop for February, so all our bags went out, all the chocolates went, but we usually have a little chocolate inside. We also use these bags as a bit of a tool to include other things. So we've worked with other organisations and charities, Next Link, so sometimes we include information on domestic abuse support. Other times we've included leaflets and toolkits on menstruation education or menopause education. So we try and use these to facilitate that conversation and understanding as best we can. So, and I've brought just a couple of bags in today, but they're here at the community centre. Should anyone want to come and pick one up, please help yourself.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you. And we have to mention supporting schools, because that's a big one, isn't it? I guess you go into schools and you give presentations.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have been asked by schools to provide period products. So actually currently the UK government or the English government do provide funding for schools to buy period products that should be available to students. It's sort of down to the discretion of each school as to how they do this. Some schools are really super and just have them really readily available and clear messaging. And other schools haven't quite got their heads around it completely. But yeah, all young people should be able to access free period products in school, primary and secondary. And that's really fantastic. It's not always the case that it's that easy. Perhaps some children have to go and ask someone at reception, perhaps a member of staff they don't know very well, and that can be uncomfortable. Or perhaps those products are left in the toilets and then misused. So yeah, there's still work to do, but I think it's a great first step.
Well, what can I say?
Amazing work, incredible.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Such an important and interesting topic to bring onto the show. It's been really fantastic.
Well, you've given us so much to think about as well. You really have, for us and our children and our friends' children. And, you know, it's been wonderful. We could have gone on for another hour, I think. But anyway, we have got to stop there. Can I just say thank you, Dr. Rae Mundane and Nic Goldhawk from the Grace Period Project. This will be turned into a wonderful podcast, and I'm sure it will be very much appreciated.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much indeed.